prophet is not without honor, except in his native place. These are words which, of course, I have difficulty relating to as someone who was born just a few miles that way, especially a few years ago when our bishop appointed me as chaplain of the high school that dismissed me when I was a student. It's interesting how things turn around. We're in an interesting place in the gospel. Jesus has just performed a series of mighty miracles, 4 of them. 3 of them we've read about on Sunday. One we didn't hear about on Sunday. We'd have to read. So first, we had the calming of the storm at sea, when Jesus silenced the wind and he stilled the waves in front of his apostles and disciples. Then we had which we didn't get in a Sunday gospel, the healing of the demoniac, the man that was possessed by the demons in the Gentile region of the area. And then Jesus returns back to the Jewish area of the region, and he performs 2 miracles that we read about last week. We had the resurrection of the daughter of Jairus, and we had the curing of Veronica, the woman with the hemorrhage, who touches the cloak of Jesus. So now Jesus kind of takes a break from his tour to return to his hometown. And his friends, his family, the people most familiar with him are utterly unimpressed. There's an old expression that says familiarity, right, breeds contempt. And so because they become familiar and acquainted with Jesus, when Jesus attempts to preach to them with authority, the same authority that in other synagogues made demons literally shriek and run out of the room, they look at him as he's trying to teach them and say, "Listen here, carpenter boy, we know who you are. Get back in the shop where you belong. We know your people, we know where you're come from, your family is here with us." Sidebar, please do not think that the church has been reading the scriptures for 2,000 years and doesn't know what they say. When we hear about the brothers and sisters of Jesus used in the gospel, that term is translated from the Aramaic and Hebrew, which does not have proper words for brothers and sisters. So the word, just like in English too, brothers and sisters can have different meanings other than biological children of the same parents. It's the same here with the family of Jesus. And in fact, like I said, in Hebrew, there are no words for cousins. So a lot of times the children of the cousins were also called brothers. We see this, for example, in the Old Testament. Lot, who is clearly spelled out as Abraham's uncle, is later in the book of Genesis called his brother. So the fact that it says the brothers and sisters of Jesus, and even the names listed here, James and Joseph, Judas and Simon and Jude here, they are actually listed elsewhere as children of another Mary, of another person by the name of Mary in scriptures. So for the first 1,500 years of Christianity, nobody questioned the fact that these were not biological children of Mary. It wasn't until well after the beginning of the Protestant Reformation. By the way, some of the greatest defenders of the perpetual virginity of Mary were Martin Luther and John Calvin. So please, no serious scripture scholar interprets this to be the brothers and sisters of Jesus. All right, are we clear on that? The blood brothers. Okay, can we move on? So back to the gospel. So they're saying, your family's here. Who do you think you are? It's easy for us to be harsh on the people of Nazareth. They said, how could they not accept Jesus? But you have to understand that Jesus lived a humble life among them as nothing more than a carpenter for 30 years. And so now he comes in and he starts to challenge them, to preach the gospel to them, to tell them that the gospel, that the law and the prophets are fulfilled in him. And they don't want to have it. They don't want to hear it. Familiarity can be troublesome sometimes, especially in the practice of religion. God always wants to do something new and amazing with us. But the problem, my brothers and sisters, is we have become cultural Catholics. And what I mean by that is Catholicism has become a mere cultural phenomena rather than an act of placing faith in Jesus Christ. I'm Catholic because I'm Irish, because I'm Italian, because I'm Hispanic, because I'm German. I'm Catholic because my parents were Catholic, my grandparents were Catholic, and these are all good and noble things. But are you allowing the newness of the gospel to touch your hearts? Are we allowing ourselves to continue to be transformed? Or do we think that because we've been Catholic all of our lives, that somehow we know it all and we have it figured out? My dear friends, there is no standing still in the spiritual life. We are either growing closer to Christ or we are falling away from him. St. Thomas Aquinas and other great spiritual writers have made this observation. And so I invite you all to be very aware and very cautious about a phenomena that I like to call the Catholic resume. I think you've heard me talk about the Catholic resume before. In case you haven't, it goes something like this. Father, I've been a Catholic my whole life. I was baptized at St. Aloysius Catholic Church. I attended St. Pius, the 12th grade school from kindergarten through 8th grade. I went to Bishop McGillicuddy High School. I went to the University of Notre Dame. My second cousin was Fulton Sheen's roommate in college. Therefore, I know and understand my faith perfectly. Until some priest, especially if he happens to be younger than you, challenges it. The prophet is not without welcome except in his native place. Again, completely unrelatable to me because nobody ever complains about anything I say. Certainly no one sends me angry emails, and no one ever writes letters to the bishop. Why don't we like to be challenged? I mean, I've had people, and it doesn't matter, it could be something small. I've had people write me angry letters because I've corrected the way they've received Holy Communion. Why? I've been doing it like this for 20 years. Well, you've been doing it wrong for 20 years. What can I say? I want to make sure that we're being reverent. I haven't been to confession in 30 years, and no priest has ever told me that's wrong before. Well, welcome to reality. I love you. I care about you. It's not the job. A lot of times people think that the church exists to make them feel good. Incorrect. For God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son so that whoever believes in him might feel very good about themselves. Hashtag things Jesus never said. Now, the gospel does tell us good things about ourselves. It tells us that we are fearfully and wonderfully made in the image and likeness of God, that when the world rejects us and pushes us aside, that God loves us and calls us his own. But we have to be open to that newness and that freshness of what it is to be a child of God every day, and that means that it's going to challenge the way that we live our lives daily. The gospel is much more than just being nice to people. It's about living a life that is focused on the God who loves you so much that he became a human being for you and for me. And the other thing we do, which is exactly what the people here in Nazareth did, and I have to ask myself, how often do I do this? How often do we put Jesus in a box? Do we say, God, your power can only go this far in my life? That person who is getting on my last nerve, that person who is really wicked, they can't be changed. God can't change their hearts. They're just like that. Or how many of us say, oh, my situation is terrible. I'm sick. I'm very ill. I have heavy financial burdens, tons of anxiety and worry. I've lost a loved one. God can't help me. Or God won't help me. That's us placing limits. Jesus was not able to do mighty works in his native place because his own family, his own people, his own countrymen would not place their faith in him. And this is why I say faith is not an abstraction. We don't just believe. We believe in Jesus Christ, the Son of the incarnate God, who is able to work miracles in our life. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we have a contract with God. If I have faith, God's going to do everything the way I want to, when I want to, how I want to, in a way that makes me happy and comfortable for my entire life. Jesus also never said, blessed are the comfortable. The answer to our prayers might not be exactly what we want and the way we want it. You pray for healing, God might not take away your cancer. But it's going to tell you that that cancer will never have the last say over you, that that disease is never going to define you, that that addiction or that mental illness or that obstacle that you surmount is not going to be your defining characteristic, because God has called you to something great. He may not remove every obstacle or hardship from our ways, but maybe he's using that obstacle, that hardship, that trial to make you into a saint, to allow us to be more holy, to give witness to him and give him glory. So we can't get mad when God doesn't answer things exactly the way we want to, because the word faith, my brothers and sisters, means to entrust yourself to another. It means I'm giving my all to you, Lord. I'm placing everything I am. I'm pushing all of my poker chips into the middle of the table. You're my last and only hope, and you're the only sure thing, so I'm giving it all to you. And this is why, like the apostles in the boat in the middle of a storm that was surely going to drown them, they called out, Lord, save us, and he did. This is why the man who was overturned by demons in Gennesaret cried out, and Jesus Christ healed him of the grip of Satan in his life. This is why Veronica, who touched the hem of Jesus, was healed of her hemorrhage. And remember, the Lord looked at her and was amazed by her faith. Amazed by her faith. And this is why Jairus, whose daughter seemed even past the point of able to hope for anything, was raised from the dead by Jesus, because Jairus had learned to put his faith in Jesus Christ. And this, my friends, is the same that God is asking of you and me. And so I challenge all of us, brothers and sisters, do not let Jesus Christ be amazed by your lack of faith.